Bonjour à tous.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming to listen to the presentation of our annual results 2006, which, as you have seen, are very positive. We have a slight issue here with the laser pointer, obviously. Thank you. Right. So, the results are extremely positive. Why? Well, the global environment has been rather positive in 2006, but over and beyond this global environment, there are specific features of AXA, which brings the management board to consider that this is a high-quality year, which allows us to render full visibility to the fruit of the strategic and operational efforts that we have undertaken now for the past few years. How is this translated? This is translated, first of all, as regards the evolution in our revenue. You know that we have a long-term plan called Ambition 2012, and that this long-term plan presupposes the achievement of a certain number of growth objectives in our business. If we are to reach our 2012 objectives, we need to grow our business in life and savings between 5 and 10% a year, P&C 3 to 5, and in asset management by over 10. If you examine our 2006 results in these three segments, we are either aligned with these objectives, which is the case in P&C despite high competitiveness in this area, or way above our long-term objectives, such as in the case of life and savings and asset management. Because if you look at the evolution of new business value in life and insurance, it's 15%, so plus 5, plus 10%. Property and casualty revenue, plus 3 in 04, plus 4 in 06, 05. Asset management, plus 14, plus 29. So everywhere worldwide, we are above the 2012 objectives. This is true for the second consecutive year. I think it is a strong indicator of the fact that the operational model we have decided to apply is one that is quite workable. If we now examine the translation of this, not just as regards our income, but this is also the first time that AXA's revenue would have organically have grown 11% from year to year, but there are different results. Before we go into the actual figures of the results themselves, which of course warrant attention, is of course profitability of new business value in life and savings, which has increased by 34% year to year, is now almost twice what it was. It is, as a matter of fact, twice as what it was 3 years ago. Also, as you will hear later presented by Denis Duverne, this is not just an improvement in volume, it is also an improvement in the margin in the different countries. Improvement of margin, of course, regarding the efforts we have undertaken in renewals and distribution. Also here, the new business value, or NBV, has reached a figure that is a record figure, very strong growth in that figure as well, showing that the group's results are not only composed of the extraction of profit on businesses that had been underwritten in the past, but that there truly is competitive growth that is occurred. In property and casualty, combined ratios have continued to improve, so yes, this is market where competition is really fierce. This is far from preventing us from reconciling growth and profitability. Here again, the cost income has been reduced in asset management by 1.5 points. This is a very positive year, as we have been able to collect 73 billion in net inflow, which is quite higher than the market levels. And this is true for AXA Investment Managers and AllianceBernstein. And this net inflow essentially stems from clients who are external to the group. And this shows that the competitiveness of our products in this area is very strong. Now, if we analyze the results themselves, of course, here, current underlying earnings here show a strong growth. Since we look at this since 2002, we can see that for the first time we have gone over and above the 4 billion rung on the scale here in these underlying earnings. So you can see that year to year the fruits of the efforts we have undertaken, and I think the validation of the strategic model in particular. You know that we chose to be in one model, which is financial protection, with a view over distribution involving multi-distribution channels, and also in a world of open architecture. In other words, a world where we sometimes accept in our own distribution channels products that are not necessarily ours, particularly as regards life and savings. All of this, of course, brings us to a 20% hike in our adjusted earnings, with here 1.1 billion euros in growth. This is an answer in numbers to all those who thought that the AXA share portfolios should be sold at the most depressed moments on our markets. We maintain them because our assets and liabilities management justified strong exposure. This is now a position that is paying off, and where we see a high level of realized capital gains. This, of course, will help us reach the objectives that we have set in this area, as you will see in the conclusion. So here, adjusted earnings of 5 billion euros is a historical record based on an extremely solid operational model. Also brings us to propose a dividend payout ratio of 40% at 1.06 euro, which will allow our shareholders to benefit from the group's positive health. And you will see later that our intent is that they should not remain the only ones to benefit from this health. How can this be explained? Figures, of course, but behind these figures or numbers, there are actions that are not only mechanical or financial. There's also very strong resolve to improve customer satisfaction, because customer satisfaction is an essential component as regards their retention. And you know that if we want to increase profitability, clients have to be happy to stay with us, because one client lost represents acquisition costs that we cannot recover and margins that we lose. And we are now more and more specifically taking into account what we mean by client satisfaction. Now, a few years ago, this was considered as a quote-unquote artistic and soft field. I don't know whether this is artistic or not. What I know is that we need to measure it and assess it in a much more specific manner, and we are implementing actions to continue to improve this area, and we can make very significant progress yet in this area. And this may explain, in part, the increase in our revenue. Also, another very important point, and as closely linked with success as the first one, is the increase in our employee engagement. If we want to reach long-term performances which are different from those of other players, not only is it important to have the commitment of the management teams in general, but also that of all of our employees. This is something that we, of course, measure very specifically. Every year we organize a survey called SCOPE. We send out approximately 80,000 employees, 65,000 employees answer these questionnaires. And of course, this allows us to clearly measure the perception employees have of the group strategy, its leadership, and their own satisfaction or dissatisfaction as to their position in the company. And the scores are progressing marginally by only 1 point, but it is still better. Here again, we believe that we can further improve. And this year, because we believe that 2012 is a project that should benefit not only the shareholders and clients, but also the employees, we are going to implement a system which will allow us to make all AXA employees shareholders of AXA. This is an idea that we'd had in mind for a long time. We had already grown this shareholder structure within the employee structures in the past. Today, there are employees that are already shareholders of the group. Underwriting has continued to increase year to year, but I think that we are at 1 employee out of every 2 shareholders. Besides, of course, mutual funds, these people hold a little over 5% of the capital and 6% voting rights. And this is something that we intend to develop further, where we will undertake discussions with the representative authorities in the different countries to find how to best implement this in a practical manner. But Ambition 2012 lead our employees to understand that there will be something there for them, that they will partake in the group's progress and success. We will give them a new itinerary. We are currently developing Passport 2012, which will lead to the organization of pluriannual evaluation and assessment interviews, and we will also submit to the vote of the General Assembly a resolution which would allow us to, in general, distribute shares to all employees in the group worldwide, of course, with the exception of those who already have significant amounts through option mechanisms, and we will therefore suggest here an option of 0.7%, i.e. 14 million, and we will also implement local specificities in this area during the financial year 2007, which means that 2004, 2005, 2006 were ahead of our objectives, and if we maintain this advance and this progress, we will certainly be stronger 2 years from now. The legal mechanisms that have been strongly improved over the past few years allow us to do this now, not only for the French shareholders, but for all employees worldwide, because 80% of the group's employees today are employees working outside France. So, so much for the commitment or engagement of our employees. It is working, sir. In 2006, we have continued here to consolidate the basis for long-term performance. When you examine here the evolution of our scope, the acquisition of Winterthur is significant because it certainly allows us to significantly increase our position in different markets and on key markets. But also, it is not the only acquisition we undertook. Some of these acquisitions were not as important as that of Winterthur, but sometimes we sometimes forget that we no longer maintained our acquisition policy in the past. This is not true. We had Mutual of New York prior to the purchase of Winterthur, but this acquisition of Winterthur was not the only one last year. It is a complement to our organic growth. This allows us to establish a foothold where we are not, to strengthen our market share as well. The acquisition of Winterthur has allowed us to reinforce our position in emerging markets as well. We have in parallel undertaken other operations or acquisitions. In Greece, we purchased the subsidiary of Greek Bank Insurance with a 20-year distribution agreement. We have set up a partnership with India's most dynamic telecommunications group, the Bharti Group, and the name of the company is Artel. This is a JV where we are hoping to see phenomenal results in the UK as well. And for example, we have acquired a certain number of companies in the field of distribution, in life and savings in Destiny, in P&C 2 brokers, and this will allow us to gradually grow our penetration rate in distribution. We are maintaining innovations as well as regards management of our balance sheet. Here we are certainly one of the first to open ways to novelties. We had done this with the automobile in 2001. We have continued in 2006 with the first cat bond on mortality. We have also worked on the evolution of our scope by exiting from businesses where we did not believe that there was a long future in the AXA Group. And for example, AXA Re was a company that was positively, where the results were positive, but there was not a long-term strategy. Last but not least, of course, how to optimize EPS. We have here been able to cancel the dilutive impacts of convertible bonds that were in circulation by literally turning off the conversion clause, and we are currently systematically proceeding to buy back shares in order to neutralize dilution coming from option programs and employee shareholding, and we will now continue this active management of our balance sheet scope with growth in mind over the long term, which can be implemented because we mobilize all the stakeholders involved, and particularly employees and clients. As regards our financial performance, Dennis will now take the floor.
Bonjour, mesdames, bonjour.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will give you more detail on AXA's performance 2006. You can see here on page 14 that performance has been improved in all of our business areas. Life and savings has shown a growth of 20%, property and casualty 8%, asset management 28%, international insurance 92%. Now this certainly warrants a few words of description. I will not return to this later on. We have, of course, exited from reinsurance business through the sales of AXA Re. We know that AXA Re faced a difficult year in 2005 due to hurricanes in the U.S., Katrina and others, which had poorly impacted the activity in this area. This area is now left with what we call runoffs, i.e. portfolios that are currently dying out, including that of reinsurance, which was strongly provisioned for and where the results expected were indeed obtained. And corporate AXA Solutions, another global industrial risk business at European level and worldwide. Also, marine and aviation had positive results in 2006, and our assistance entity, AXA Assistance, also posted positive results in 2006. Finally, other financial services and holdings, stable here, and negative on the holdings in view of the interest load here but stable as regards the financial year. Now, life insurance, as Henri de Castres told you, our performance was excellent in 2006 in this business area. We witnessed an increase of 15% on NBV, new business value, over AP annual premium equivalent. The margin here has been improved by 3.5 points on NBV to reach 24.1%. So the result is that new business value has progressed by 34% and is now at 1.5 billion euros. So to return to these different elements, first, the activity itself for new business. New business has increased by 15%. But when we look at UL products, we can see progress at 30%. And in new production, 45% in 2005 is now at 51%. We can see that progress in this case was extremely strong, particularly in France, in the UK, in Japan, and in Germany. In the UK, I would like to comment this activity simply by indicating that this is the result both of a reform of retirement that we have called, or pension reform that we've called A-Day, which is certainly more favorable to retirement activities, both for AXA and its competitors, and also major success as regards investment products sold by our company on the Isle of Man, selling to British residents. In Japan, very strong growth here in the activity, 16%, and also strong progress in France and in the US, and I will return to these two countries a little bit later. Now, if we look at new business value itself, the 34% progress is spectacular, and here I'm going to share with you the highest levels, with tripling of these figures in Germany at plus 210%, and this is the announced success of the deployment of different products, accumulator in the US known as Twin Star in Germany, retirement product and ULs, and its profitability levels are much better than those of existing products. So I would say that this is both favorable to the policyholders who can remain invested in shares to prepare their retirement on the best investment, while being protected against drops in financial markets, because what of course slows down investments in shares is the risk of a dropping market. And in Germany we have launched this product. We intend to launch it in practically all European countries throughout the year 2007, and we hope that these launches will give us maintained growth and margin. Second comment, US plus 51%. I would say that this is the result both of our maintained market share on UL products that we call variable annuities in the US, where AXA is number 3 on the market and has consolidated its position in 2006, and also a growth in viable life. And here, thanks to money, we were able to grow our sales through third-party channels, and this is major success. Very strong growth in France, plus 28%, which is the combination of very strong activity on group life insurance, and also the success of our product launch end of 2005 on savings products, and launches which took place in 2006, particularly as regards health, and this leads to high progress both in volumes and margins in France. UK, I've just mentioned, US, and you can see that in Asia as well, and in Japan, growth is strong. In Japan, the success comes from the medical products, and also the appearance of a savings product, although accumulator in dollars did not work very well. This led us to launch, beginning of 2007, a yen-based accumulator product, which should give us better results. I would say that results in terms of profit for life and savings is a growth of 22%, which includes a certain number of exceptional items in the US, for example, with refund of taxes. In Japan last year, we had also seen a position that was not reproduced this year, but we can see that growth rate remains at 21% regardless, and growth that is high-level quality and gives us full satisfaction. If we now go into P&C, you can see that in an environment which is considered as much more competitive, AXA's growth and results have continued to grow at plus 4%. This growth is both for corporations at plus 4% and individuals where growth is 5%, with net inflow from motor of over 900,000 contracts. So we are continuing to win market share in this area, and also net inflows in individual household of 231,000 contracts. So AXA is continuing to grow its market share. If we look at the countries themselves, we can see that there are 2 countries whose results are totally exceptional. UK with 7% growth in income, so much higher than that of the market. And what I could call here emerging markets, you can see Turkey, Asia, Morocco, are also pulling the group's growth forward. Usually France and Belgium are aligned with global environment, and prices are so tough in Germany that growth is inferior. It is at plus 1%, but nonetheless, growth is maintained. This growth did not prevent us from reducing what we call our combined ratio. Claims expenses here over income. You can see a drop in this combined ratio of 96.9%, very favorable, and this is the result of a drop in our claims ratio of 0.9 points, increase of fees and revenues, And this increase is the combination of two opposed phenomena. First of all, a drop in our expenses ratio that we are here calling administrative costs, that is dropped by 1 point, and acquisition costs as well, which have played a role. In the UK, for example, we have distribution agreements for very high level commissions, and this is very favorable. This improvement of the combined ratio is visible throughout the group's geographies, the exception, of course, being UK and Ireland at plus 0.2, a combination, of course, of an improvement in the combined ratio and depreciation of the same ratio in Ireland, or deterioration, rather, in Ireland. Although the level is still very positive in Ireland, but there have been very strong drops in prices, and, of course, the combined ratio here is closer to a normal level in Ireland. In all, our technical result is up 190, and in view of the fact that we are in a positive cash flow position because our business continues to grow by a large amount here, and our financial revenues, of course, are increasing. It is logical that taxes should increase as well, so you can see in growth in our P&C earnings that is quite positive. Now, some of you are slightly preoccupied as regards the trends in P&C. In fact, we traditionally show you this flag-studded chart, and you can see that this is a reflection of different positions on the markets. You can see that about half of our renewals on existing contracts have been undertaken with a drop in price, another with increases. The number of flags over and above the line has slightly moved, but we are not at all preoccupied by the ones beneath the line regarding 2007. It is true that the situation we face is slightly more competitive, but we believe that we will be able to come out winners because our renewals are undertaken in a fairly neutral manner as regards their impact on our income. And we will certainly continue to grow our portfolios, but renewals are carried out at a level close to zero if you calculate the average of all of these numbers. Asset management now, you can see that average assets under management concerning AllianceBernstein and AXA Investment Managers have shown here a drop in 2006, increased in 2006 by 18%. And here you can see outlined on this graph 19% growth, 1,029 billion euros. This does not cover all the assets under management in the group, and we will talk to you about this in April. We will need to add the assets directly under management by the insurance company, as well as the assets of Winterthur acquired end of December. If you look at the spread of these assets, you can see here that the light blue part of the column, i.e. assets under management for third parties, representing 61.5% of our assets at the end of 2005, represents 65% end of 2006, which is demonstration of the improvement of our profitability because assets under management have less margin than those managed for third parties. Now, if we analyze the reasons behind the evolution of these assets under management, we must say that there are three major factors impacting them here. First of all, a record net inflow in 2006 at 73 billion euros. Strong position at AllianceBernstein with 38 billion euros, and very strong at AXA IM at 35 billion. A very positive market effect because equity markets have made progress, and so have real estate assets, and so the markets here slightly reduced because the bonds markets are slightly deteriorated with a hike in rates. But globally, this involves very positive market trends and also a negative forex here because we do manage assets under all significant currencies worldwide. Now, if we look more particularly at these performances at AllianceBernstein and investment managers, I would say that the global increase is 29%, 25% for AllianceBernstein and 38% for investment managers. This progress is the result of a growth in revenues. The 38% at investment at AXA IM does not take into account other areas. Now, we here have underlying cost-income ratios, performances as regards operational efficacy and productivity have demonstrated improvement by minus 1.5 points and 1.6. So globally, very high performance levels in our asset managers. And finally, I would like to now come to the explanation of how we analyze our results. We usually, of course, focus on underlying earnings. We can see here an increase by plus 20% with 1.3 billion euros, which means, of course, that capital gains have progressed as have the underlying earnings. And there is an interesting result here is that our net income demonstrates a growth of 18%, due, of course, to the progress in the adjusted earnings, but also to the lines beneath it. In other words, profit loss on financial assets under fair value option and derivatives. You know that under IFRS, these financial instruments are accounted for in market value, and they do not all qualify as hedging instruments, which means that even if elsewhere in your balance sheet there is an element showing similar variations, we will of course analyze this impact. This year the impact was negative by 226 million euros, i.e. the effect of the hike in rates. Exceptional operations this year have had very positive impacts on the change of the group's scope. Here this comes from a gain on the sale of AXA Re, a dilution gain, in other words, a gain which comes from options outstanding that are no longer outstanding at AllianceBernstein, and also a refund in terms of tax items related to the sale of DLJ. So globally, positive. Thank you. I'll return the floor to Henri de Castries. Right. I thought it was necessary here to talk with you about the integration of Winterthur, because you know very often the questions we heard after this acquisition were, is Winterthur in shape? Does it present a potential for growth? What is the strategic advantage? How will you integrate it? And here we would like to give you additional answers to these three questions with very strong red thread. The more we move ahead, the happier we are to have undertaken this acquisition. Not only is it interesting, it is also operationally highly satisfactory. As regards Winterthur itself, when you look at its 2006 results, I think that the answer is relatively simple as regards growth and profitability. When you look at their new business value and new business here, you can see that their growth is slightly quicker than ours. 6% only in Switzerland, of course, but much higher in continental Europe and in the UK, which means that this company certainly has networks and products that are highly competitive. When you look at non-life, P&C, growth is perhaps more modest than ours at 2%. In Switzerland, it's 2%. It's a little bit higher in continental Europe, excluding Switzerland. So this again demonstrates that it is a company where the market had not fully perceived the upswing, and this is certainly what we were interested in. Now, if we look at their earnings and we look at the earnings regarding the activities, the businesses that we will keep, because you can see that we fairly quickly sold out the P&C business in the US at a very interesting price, I must say. And the progress here has made satisfactory progress, has advanced in 2006. And we must say that the upswing was very important as regards combined ratio as well, because as many actors such as we were in the past, the combined ratio was above 100. They are now at 95 with a very healthy provision situation. So this business is in good shape with strong growth potential. First answer. Secondly, what does this bring in strategically? Well, things that are far from negligible. If you look at what Winterthur represents as addition to the AXA scope, it's approximately 20%, 18% for life and savings, 22% P&C. And it is also the consolidation of our market share in certain areas. Important merger in Belgium, Germany, Spain in particular. And here for Belgium and Germany, this is organized, this is managed by Freddy Bouckaert. This is certainly for us an opportunity to leverage our critical mass. We were present in Belgium, but we have now become a major player on these markets. And this also opens new markets such as Switzerland, which is highly profitable and which is similar in many ways to what Belgium was a few years ago, which opens another window on the emerging Eastern European countries where we were looking for a position. So we globally consider that this is a very positive addition to the group's activities. It's not enough to purchase the company. It also must be integrated. So how is this being undertaken? Fairly simply, actually. 18 years of my professional life was spent in AXA, and I think this is certainly the fastest integration process I've ever seen, because the level of cooperation between Credit Suisse, Winterthur, and our teams has been absolutely extraordinary. So since the month of September, we were able to appoint the new managers, who in turn appointed their new teams. At the end of the month of November, we had obtained their vision as regards their strategic plans for 2007-2009. So as of January 1, when the new configuration was established, the new teams were able to begin working, not looking to the past, but looking to the future. And we can say that today brand policy, brand strategies are clarified everywhere, targets are clarified everywhere, operational challenges are relatively clear. In Switzerland, it's relatively simple. We need to extract synergy, accelerate growth. Winterthur's growth is too slow in individual products, and we believe that in P&C, for example, with strong segmentation of portfolios, we can probably change matters as well. I also think that as regards marketing, there is still further improvement that can be implemented in Switzerland. In Germany, we are acquiring a very interesting customer base because Winterthur had purchased a company that worked with civil servants and other administrations and unions, a client base which resembles that of GMF in France. And as regards integration, things are very positive. The head of Winterthur in Germany is someone who is from our company, who knows both the companies well. He is in charge of the integration, and the integration, as I was saying, in Germany is going very well. In Belgium, the issue, of course, is active management of relationships with our brokers. Two companies such as these mean that we, of course, change our weight in the portfolio of some of the brokers. So the issue here involves market share, but we're being extremely careful, and we are extracting significant economies of scale. And in Spain, the situation is the same. So where are we now as regards integration? It is moving ahead well, even better than what we thought, because in fact, we have hiked up the potential of synergy that we thought we could, in fact, extract from this operation. We thought this was extremely interesting for AXA shareholders because we thought that in 2009 this would represent 7% per share, and we in fact are increasing this objective today because we are saying that all of these synergies should reach 350 million euros. Where does this come from? From very swift integration, because in all areas where we in fact had deployed our headcount, things are going faster than we'd planned. This is not the only reason, but it is an important one. This cost of integration is perhaps hiked up slightly, but not at all in the same proportion, because it is only 20 million euros out of 500. So you can see that the increase of synergies is 25%, with the implementation costs at around 4%. This is more than acceptable. Where do we stand now as regards the group globally speaking? What are our perspectives? Well, Last eye on 2006, strong progress both in business and earnings. Organic growth of 11% at permanent scope, 20% growth in results, modification of 30% in the group scope as well, because Winterthur and other acquisitions in give us a growth, of course, here in our revenues. So here this means that the basis for future results will increase significantly, and this, of course, in an environment that we believe will remain favorable. Of course, at some point there may be a glitch somewhere on the markets or in world growth, but we certainly are relatively confident, and we are very positively impressed by the implementation of our objectives for 2012. We believe that the three market segments will continue to benefit from the efforts we have undertaken. Life savings, of course, this involves efforts to improve the quality of our products, accelerating innovation as well, extending distribution, deployment of the American product range accumulator throughout the group, and this, of course, is producing effects that are quite visible. This is an initiative that was pushed forward by Kip Condren and global level, and we can see here that the effects are beginning to make themselves felt. As regards P&C, yes, of course, markets are highly competitive, but you have seen what Denis Duverne told you as regards price evolutions. They cannot be considered as tragic in any way or form. Our prices are competitive as well because we have brought in a fairly significant, if not very significant, number of new business in 2006. Of course, there's more competition, but to face up to this competition, we do what any industrial player do. We improve our underwriting. We try to drop our operational costs and also the costs of our claims management and of our, the drop in our claims expenses. And also as regards here asset management, we have two entities, AllianceBernstein on one side and AXA IM on the other, that are truly at their highest peak in terms of efficiency because the inflow last year demonstrates that products and the strategies are good. And finally, we also believe that we have a structural talent to extract capital gains from our share portfolios, which are very, very positive. This demonstrates the existence of a landscape where fundamentals remain strong, where the operational model that we have now implemented over the past few years is being deployed globally and allows us to capture profitable growth that we feel is structurally above that of many of our competitors. We are left with much to do, but we are in a situation that we judge to be extremely healthy and robust. This is what I wanted to share with you by emphasizing one further point, which is that we have a managerial vision which involves the fact that the group's prosperity must benefit everyone, clients in the form of more competitive products, and I would even say of attractive proposals, benefit our shareholders as far as results are concerned, but also benefit our employees in the form of potential improved career development opportunities. And this is where we stand today, and we are prepared to take your questions.
Pour les questions, je vous demande...
For questions, please raise a hand. Introduce yourselves, if you will, because some members of the management board do not know you all. Guillaume Beaujean, Les Echos. I had 3 questions. Could you please return to what you intend to do? Because, for example, Generali has distributed here free shares. Is this what you want to do? So I guess the question was related to the shareholding structure for our employees. Secondly, I would like to know what the total amount of this distribution would be. Third question, I think you said that you acquired Winterthur for 1.5 times the embedded value. I would like to know where the Americans stand as far as this multiple is concerned. Excellent questions as regards employee shareholding, the evolution of 0.7% throughout the group. As far as details are concerned, I do not want to get into them really today because I believe that the social negotiations are essential in the operations of our company and the flexibility of our model to adapt it to what local constraints are, which can be tax constraints or other constraints, can also be essential. The principle for us is transparent. In the different countries, we are beginning our discussions regarding the practical modalities for the implementation of employee shareholding with the different bodies involved. As regards the second question on acquisitions, there was Winterthur in Destiny, two PNC brokers in the UK, the bank in Greece. No, I'm sorry. The insurance subsidiary of the bank in Greece, Alpha Assurance, and also life insurance, and also the conclusion of the Citadel acquisition in Canada, which is a Winterthur subsidiary that they sold to us prior to our buying Winterthur. This involves a little over 9 billion euros, ladies and gentlemen. Third question, the embedded value of the American activities. Denny? Yes, we have sold the Winterthur businesses in the U.S. for a price higher than the one we had anticipated to pay in the global purchase, which has a very favorable impact. Also favorable is the increase of our synergy objective to 25%, which means that globally the value of the whole is higher than what we had initially assessed. I am not for the moment capable of aligning this with a price over embedded value ratio, but Winterthur definitely is proving to be a very positive acquisition because we have found more value in it than what we had initially calculated. Other questions? Question up front, please. Good morning, Economic Press Germany. A question on Winterthur as regards the fact that you are moving ahead more quickly as regards the integration. Can we know what markets this involves? Because Mr. Duvin told me that discussions with the unions could last up to 12 months, and for me, Germany is not necessarily ahead of the pack as far as the integration is concerned. The second question as regards your slide 51 on analysts' new business value per country. We can see that a large share of the growth involves the positive cat bonds, and also do you have a growth in the volume that you expect? What country in Germany? Page 50 at the bottom. And third question, and I can see it in this chart, that the earnings in life and savings in Japan have dropped strongly. Why? Thank you. Yes, we are moving ahead significantly more quickly than initially planned, which is why we have certainly hiked up our synergy objectives, including in Germany. It is true that in Germany the pace, because there are constraints that are specific to Germany, the pace here is always slower, or slightly slower than in other countries. But when the Germans understand, then they can no longer be stopped. So what happens here? Simply, if I give you the example of headquarters in Switzerland, the Swiss business in Winterthur that was operational in the field was easy. The merger was simple, but there was a headquarters that was a group headquarters, and that was very significant in size, and we of course had to reduce its size. In reality, we had to close it with some activities that we decided, for example, to leave positioned in Switzerland, some in runoff because they had some extremely competent teams that worked hand in hand with ours. The evolution of this headquarters project was much more swift and went along much more quickly than what we initially thought, because over 90% of Winterthur staff members at HO, headquarters, left us and have already found jobs. So in fact, it's not 90% who have left. It's the 90%. It's 90% of those who have left have already found a new position. And this, in fact, is a very strong example. In Belgium and Spain, for example, there are a certain number of other points as regards headcount, which are moving ahead. We have undertaken social negotiations, but things are moving ahead very quickly. And also synergies in places where we had underestimated them are appearing. So this is very, very positive in most countries. Also, growth in Germany, page 50 that you have alluded to, is one which is very satisfactory in our opinion as far as life insurance is concerned. In 2006, our goal was to launch TwinStar, the new product. Many people were skeptical as regards the product's capacity to reach significant volume and its capacity as well to change the beneficiary margin landscape. And when you look at the results of Germany in 2006, for us, profitability of new business in life insurance has been multiplied by 3 because of the introduction of this product. And we also believe that this product still contains very significant potential, because on what we call periodical premiums, we are quite aligned with our earnings objectives. As far as single premiums are concerned, we're a little bit in far removed from our objectives. We also have here an agreement with Siebanken, a German bank. We think that things are evolving in an extremely interesting way. So we know we have a lot left to do, but we are rather happy as regards to growth in Germany. Just another question. How much does TwinStar represent today in the sales of life insurance products? Total sales, 2006, life insurance products. What is the share of TwinStar? Yeah, we'll have to return to you with this because it is certainly a product that will grow that has really grown over the year, began in March and April. We'll be able to give you the precise figure a little bit later. You want to answer in Japan? Well, progress in Japan is only 1% in 2006, but do not forget that there were non-recurrent items in 2005 which represented over 60 million euros. And as indicated here in one of the pages that I presented when I took the floor, and I will find very quickly, which is page 1818. So if we remove 67% non-recurrent, in reality, progress is closer to 20%. If we eliminate these non-recurrent items in 2005, which stemmed from capital gains and reassessment of our future investment assumptions and interest rates. So excluding non-recurring items, Japan has progressed in its results by around 20%. As far as TwinStar is concerned, TwinStar represents 12% of sales in APE. In other words, we sell many other products, but it certainly is growing in the share it represents in our profitability, because it is thanks to TwinStar that new business value has almost reached 30. Yes, this is very important because in Germany, traditionally, this was not a profitable market. It is very interesting today for the consumer because, in fact, the performance of UL products or variable annuities, as we say in the U.S., on the markets, of course, are guaranteed and that clients paid, but nonetheless, they are guarantees. This is very interesting for the sales channels because margins here also are much better than on products which are traditional products. So everyone cannot do this. This is a very specific illustration of the advantage of our industrial model. It is very complicated to design such products. And it is very complicated as well, and because the interest of the product itself is the combination between performance and coverage. And implementing coverage programs is something that not everybody can do. You need highly sophisticated engineering. And because we have developed this know-how in the US, we are able, throughout the group, to establish a hedging platform in Europe, which certainly differentiates us from a large number of our competitors. Yes. Merger market, Plancarimer. You last year spent 9 billion euros for 11 acquisitions. I wanted to ask you what your 2007 objectives are. Do you intend to maintain the same pace or will you slow down? And also, would you be seeking other acquisitions which can considerably enlarge your scope, or are you already, particularly after the acquisition of Winterthur, reaching your critical size? And finally, what are the areas, priority areas and countries, since you've done a lot in 2006? I understand your question, and we always give this type of question the same answer. The group strategy has not changed for approximately 25 years. We are in one business, financial protection, globally, and to combine both organic and external growth. As far as external growth is concerned, the rule is, as soon as we are clearly informed of what our business is and where we intend to grow it geographically, is to apply the most absolute form of pragmatism. So I do not know what the volume of acquisitions will be in 2007. I do not know where the next opportunity will come from. The only thing I do know is that we have an operational model that is in place. It is efficient, as demonstrated by strong organic growth, puts us, if an opportunity arises, to seize it extremely quickly, because this is what we've demonstrated with Winterthur and other acquisitions. As a matter of fact, since the beginning of this year, we have announced novelties. In the UK, we acquired an insurance company distributing motor insurance directly via the net, which is state-of-the-art in terms of innovation and competitiveness in this area. There may be others, there may not be, I don't know. It will depend on what comes up. We have no specific objective to undertake further expenses. This would certainly be the best way to make mistakes. On the other hand, our eyes are open, and if opportunities arise under conditions that we are prepared to accept, we will seize them. It does not mean that we will seize them all. When you think of the number of submissions that we examined last year compared to what we actually undertook, there's a huge difference. Microphone, please. Microphone, I'm sorry, I can't hear the question. All right, always the same. Europe, North America, emerging markets in Europe and Asia. And as we demonstrated with the Winterthur and other acquisitions, we want these to be profitable for the shareholder. And our capacity for execution has improved unceasingly. And therefore, there's a whole part of the group, almost half, that is extremely busy with the integration of Winterthur, and quite probably the number of new operations will be very limited in the 18 months to come. But there is 20% of the group that is not at all involved in the Winterthur integration, where everything is possible. But we will see. Microphone for this lady, please. I cannot hear the question.
Il faut pas dire ça comme ça, parce que quand on dit...
No, don't say it this way, because when you say it this way, we have the impression, you give the impression that we are unrealistic. AXA's capacity for growth is dependent on its operational capacities, which are very strong, but growth will always be underscored by the most absolute form of pragmatism, as soon as, of course, our acquisitions are in the business and the geographical areas we prefer. This is what we say every year. When you repeat the same question next year, we will repeat the same answer. I still have the same question after 10 years. This is not the first time I'm asking it. Yes, I'd like to know whether you have an interest in the capital of Capitalia, and if yes, what? You know, the ties between France and Italy, of course, are very specific. Le Désert des Tartares is certainly a book that we can reread because it's very interesting. But generally, we are also here facing this situation with huge pragmatism. As Denis Duverne has said, what we would like to do when we undertake acquisitions is that they make sense. If they have to give us significant market positions, but they also have to involve costs and execution potential, which makes these acquisitions interesting for our clients and our shareholders. And we do not make a decision on the basis that we will be perhaps in a country where we are less present than elsewhere, and where we would give ourselves every right. Whenever an opportunity comes up, we analyze it very seriously. And as regards our interests in companies that are listed on worldwide stock exchanges, we do not publish them. We only publish them when we exceed regulatory thresholds, and the management of our portfolios then require that we sometimes exceed thresholds, but it is not our intention to publish the percentage of our interests in all companies worldwide. Pascal Denis, Reuters Agency, can you hear me? I have two questions for you. I wanted to know how you anticipated growth in asset management, where you have had two very strong growth years, and I'd like to know whether you think that this trend can last for a third year. Also, I would like to know how your gearing has evolved, please. As regards asset management, we have had 2 excellent years, which means that the product range has improved and the penetration rates have increased. You know that net inflow also came in from AXA Management for third parties, which means that our asset managers are quite competent. We are extremely comfortable with the objectives here that we have in the field that you have just described. We think that growth will be above 10%. Do we believe that performance levels at 30% are repeatable every year? Probably not, but of course this is dependent on the international environment, depends on many things. Doesn't mean that we have a pessimistic view of asset management, quite the opposite. When you look at the track record, I think that there aren't very many European buyers here who have sustainably been successful in the North American area in asset management. Look at what happened to Allianz Capital and AllianceBernstein since 1991, date at which we became owners. Look at what has happened to AXA IM, started from scratch in 1993, and look at the recent acquisitions that we've undertaken. If you take AXA Rosenberg, for example, we purchased Rosenberg in 99, I think, and 99, when we purchased them, they managed $6 billion. Today, they manage over 100 billion in assets. We purchased Framlington from HSBC 18 months ago. The volume of assets under management has been multiplied by 2. So what this is backed by is twofold. First, the fact that we have real capacity for integration. Also, the fact that our industrial model is one which allows the generation of growth that is over and above that of the market. Why? Because asset management companies need to be considered a little bit like research laboratories. These are risk takers. They manufacture products, sometimes independently, sometimes together. They then put them through distribution networks, which give them critical sizes that they would not reach if they remained isolated laboratories. This is what happened with Framlington, with Rosenberg. This is what is happening with AllianceBernstein. This is what is happening on real estate as well here, and also in private equity, where we started from 0 and we are now at 11 billion euros. This capacity, there is no reason for it not to be maintained. If we quote unquote seek production of highly competitive products, well, then the capacity of people to absorb them will remain very strong. So this will also maintain a very high level for us in terms of growth. Doesn't mean it'll be repeated every year. Second question regarding gearing. Let me remind you of the fact that today we do not publish AXA's balance sheet, because that will be published April 10. It is a balance sheet that will, of course, include Winterthur, that we purchased Winterthur on December 22nd. This is when we will give you information regarding these issues, and not now. Yes? Stanislas Touchot, Agence France Presse. I simply wanted, I would like you to return to 2 points. First of all, the exact amount regarding capital realized gains on the sales of AXA Re. Also, as regards losses on financial assets, to demonstrate that this is indeed totally and completely the impact of the interest rates. Now, 66 million euros for AXA Re capital gain. And the movements here that you have mentioned are indeed movements which only result from the mark-to-market of derivatives, which are not qualified under IFRS as hedging instruments, although they are essentially, these are rate instruments and currency sometimes, but essentially rates. And this is essentially the effect of the interest rate hike. Any other questions? Yes. Philippe, from Reuters, two questions. One, which is fairly specific. Yeah, it would seem that AXA is showing an interest in an Italian insurer called MPS. I would like to know what's happening here. And I have a second question that is slightly more general. AXA is one of the largest players in Paris. And certainly and would the head of one of the largest French insurance companies be a candidate for the presidential elections? I think that will be enough. Now, as regards your first question, we never comment on ongoing discussions. And on the second questions, we never comment on personal issues as regards results and their presentations. Thank you. Yes. Séverine Solier, La Tribune. You have announced that the accumulator product would be generalized in Europe in 2007. I would like to know whether this will be the case in France and whether you will use the diversified euro to do this. We will be launching the product in spring, i.e. now in France, and we will launch it through all of our distribution networks and probably soon in third-party networks. Of course, it is a product that will require some time to explain it to our networks. And we are certainly expecting strong development. It is complementary to the other products in our range, but it is one that we intend to push forward very strongly. Of course, 2007, in view of the launch date, will not necessarily pull our earnings further, but one of the objectives we have is a significant growth in our earnings in 2007 and full deployment. You said that you would distribute 0.7% of your capital. Could you please give us some more specifications, i.e. how much for the employees? These discussions will be organized at local level. 7% represents 14 million in shares. And if we apply the legal mechanisms that exist, there are shares that we can distribute. And I'm simplifying this, of course, can be accessible 4 years later. The goal is not that 4 years from now, the price of the share should be at the same level it is now. You can see this is a very significant commitment on the part of the shareholders to ensure that staff members find their interest in the new developments over and above what happens in their own salaries and in their own career developments. But I think it is important to demonstrate that the group's development and prosperity would be beneficial to all. And also this allows our employees to understand that everyone can become shareholders. Our employees are very strongly committed to the corporate savings plan. And I think this was 3% above what the position was the year before. As a matter of fact, for the employees who have been participating in this plan from the beginning, they see that this is a very positive operation. They have multiplied their investment by 3 in most cases. Also, as others, because they did not have enough savings, could not afford paying into the corporate savings plan, or didn't necessarily feel they had to. We will, of course, here with this new approach, make each employee a member of the prosperous winners. Sibyl. Sibyl Risque, Argus Rassurance. I just wanted to know whether your resolve to distribute shares to your employees are at all linked with your determination to relocate. The question doesn't really require an answer. It has there's no link between the two. We can always talk about relocation if you'd like. It is certainly a subject which is extremely emotional, very sensitive. It is something that we have been doing for a long time on other markets, such as the UK, which explains the strong development of our business in the UK today. UK employees answer today, say today that they understand why we did this, and in P&C in the UK, our growth rate is around 9%, that we would not have if our products had not become competitive, in particular, thanks to a certain number of production process transfers to Bangalore. The model is very simple. We need to drop our production costs to increase sales efficiency and therefore grow market share and employment in our commercial networks. What we're doing in France is the same thing. Initially, this does not involve a single job cut because according to our objectives 2012, if we reach these objectives, we believe that we will have twice into 2012 the levels of money we have today. So what is the truth in reality? The reality is that there will be less administrative, low qualified jobs, but we will have more commercial jobs because we'll have more clients. I find it extremely difficult to find this a negative approach to the future. I think that you need to look at the world and its evolution as an adult. And we haven't been pedagogical enough, perhaps, in our approach to help people understand what is happening. But for me, things are extremely clear. And as long as this team will be here at the helm of AXA, do not count on us to hide things or to be complacent as far as these issues are concerned. We are here to guarantee the group's prosperity over the long term. This prosperity is also that of our employees. And since this may involve a certain number of similar measures, which sometimes can appear as difficult and may require some explanation, but we have no intention of compromising the quality of our industrial model just because we would not be brave enough to deal with these politically and emotionally sensitive issues. I do not want to see our industry go through what happened in the textile industry or in the shipyard industry. They refuse to watch these unavoidable economic evolutions, and therefore our country lost its levels of competitiveness. Next question. Is that... Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.